Welcome to the Edges of Lean. I'm Bella Engelbach, and in this podcast we explore the human and creative side of lean thinking, unusual places where lean thinking is practiced. We meet people who are practicing continuous improvement in many different flavors and styles. So come along with me on a journey to the edges of lean.
Episode 63, Continuous Improvement and the CFO Who Didn't Like Math, with Kevin Palmieri. In continuous improvement, we love our numbers. Data is the bedrock of knowing what our current situation is and whether we are improving. Kevin Palmieri is the CFO, founder, and co-host of Next Level University, a global top 100 self-improvement podcast with more than 1,000 episodes reaching over 500,000 people in more than 125 countries. Kevin and his business partner are all about helping people to continuously improve. And Kevin started out not really being a numbers guy, but he changed his mind. Let's hear how it happened.
Kevin Palmieri, welcome to the Edges of Lean.
Thank you for having me, Bella. I'm excited to chat, and I'm looking forward to seeing where we go with our conversation today.
Thanks. And I just to put a little framing around this for my listeners, Kevin is one of those people we just love to have on the podcast because you're doing continuous improvement, but you didn't come to it through the pathway that many of us have come through training in Lean or Lean Sigma or some other improvement approach. You are somebody who has developed an approach to continuous improvement through your other experiences. So tell us about that. Tell us about what you're doing and what your pathway was to get to do what you're doing.
Yeah. So the main thing that I do is I'm a podcaster. That's the biggest part of our business, but we have a very large business where we have a bunch of different services and products for people. And when I started the podcast, like most people, I started from a place of passion. I just wanted to jump on the microphone. I wanted to have conversations with people. And I was like, this is all going to work out. This is going to be completely fine. And eventually I'll be successful. And I realized pretty quickly that's not how success works. There's usually something going on behind the scenes where you're reverse engineering an outcome that you want. And I ended up partnering with somebody I went to high school with. And he went to a very prominent technical school. He is an electrical and computer engineer. And he started to teach me about math. And he started to talk to me about the power of 1% improvements and continuous improvement and getting 1% better every day. And for the longest time, Bella, I was like, what is this guy talking about? I don't understand. Number one, I don't know why math is so valuable. Why are you trying to teach me math? I don't want to learn math. I want to be an entrepreneur. But as it continued and continued, I started to see through the habits that I was practicing every day that I was getting better and better and better. The little tweaks we were making in the podcast, over 1,000 episodes, have really, really impacted us. And then even the way we set the business up was based on, okay, every single meeting we have, we're going to focus on the most important win and we're going to focus on the most important improvement. Every single department, every single week, every single day, that's what we're doing now. And that's helped me so much. And I feel like for me, I felt very out of control in the beginning. And now I feel more in control because I understand what strings to pull to get certain results.
So as you were going through your own education process, what was your thinking about math? What did you, were you that guy sitting in the back of the class just waiting for the class to be over?
Yeah, I genuinely had to cheat in geometry to get through.
Wow.
Yeah, I had to cheat. I had somebody who sat next to me who helped me with every single test we did. I would copy his homework. I was not good at math at all. And I think for me, I never understood that it was such an important component to success. I just assumed math was something the smart kids did. They went away and got math jobs. And then from there, I never saw them again. That was kind of what I thought happened. But when I started to understand everything at the end of the day is kind of math, like that's kind of the way the universe is set up. That's kind of the way everything is set up. That really helped me. I remember I had a conversation with Alan and I said, hey, I'm $7,000. Alan's my business partner. I said, I'm $7,000 in debt. Should I pay off my loan or not? And he said, well, how much money do you have in the bank? And I said, like $15,000. He said, what's your interest rate? I said, it's 21%. He's like, pay it off. Why wouldn't you pay it off?
21%?
Yeah.
Kevin?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Discover they had a hold on me at the time. But in my mind, that didn't logically, I couldn't do the numbers in my head. I knew I had money left over, but my connection in my relationship with numbers was so miscued that I didn't know that that was a smart move. So that is where I started when it comes to math. Very, very low.
Wow. Wow. And, Kevin, you're not alone. I mean, I think there's so many people who go through school and because maybe they learn differently or they have math teachers that don't know how to connect math to reality. And look, kids don't understand how the world works anyway, right? So if you say to a kid, it's very important for you to learn how math works so you don't get cheated by a credit card company, they're probably still going to roll their eyes, right? I mean, so I don't want to necessarily blame teachers, but you're not alone. You're not alone in this. And hey, I was the same way. I mean, I got to say, I loved algebra, and I totally love calculus, which is weird, but I could not do geometry. And I think it's just the way that my brain works. Didn't know what it's for. And my dad was an engineer, and he didn't understand why I didn't love geometry. Like how could you not love geometry? It's so amazingly cool. So I totally get that, totally sympathize with you on that. But then as you started to work with Alan and started to learn this stuff, was there a moment when you said, you had this credit card situation, but were there other moments where you just said, oh, this is it, this is what it's all about?
Yeah, I read The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, and I got to the point where he talked about the magic penny, the penny that doubled every day for 30 days. It blew my mind. It didn't make any sense to me. I said, this can't be real. This can't be possible. And then I started researching exponentials and compounding. And then, that's when things started to make a lot more sense to me, because I realized, number one, the importance of consistency. Number two, the importance of consistency over time. And then number three, the importance of consistency over time with focused improvement. And that magic penny thing for me, that unlocked a whole bunch of stuff, because that's what Alan was trying to tell me, but he never connected it to money. And to your point, Bella, in school, I agree with you. I don't think the teachers did anything wrong. I just don't think they connected it to what I valued. If you connected it to money and said, if you understand math at the deepest level, you'll be a multimillionaire, whatever they thought, that definitely would have helped me. It would have motivated me to do it more and better. But yeah, the magic penny, the doubling penny, understanding that if you had a penny that doubled every day, I don't even remember the number that it gets to at the end. It's in the millions, which is just mind blowing to me. But that was something that really helped me see it from a different perspective that actually made sense for the first time.
That's amazing. It reminds me of a conversation I had with someone I greatly admired, someone named Jay Siegel, who was the head of research development for a big part of the pharmaceutical company that I was working for. And Jay's an amazing mind. And one day, I said to Jay, it's really interesting. I said, when you think about it, because we're in the biology field, I said, biology is really chemistry. And chemistry is really physics. So everything that we do is really physics. And he said, it's just like this glow on his face. He said, yeah, and physics is really math. As you said, the whole universe is math. I mean, that's how it works. But for those of us who do continuous improvement as a profession, this is actually a frustration that we have. And it would, so how Alan got through to you is really interesting. So one of the things that we sometimes tend to do as we're training people on continuous improvement is start with the math. And start with, you need to understand the math, and you need to understand the statistics, and you need to understand what happens when we talk about quality. We talk about a level of quality. What does it mean to have, Six Sigma quality, and how would you calculate that, and what's a p-value? And that's not stuff that I'm crazy about either. And you see people's eyes glaze over. But what you're talking about is passion, right? It's about knowing that you're making a difference in your own life or in other people's lives, and you're using the math as a way to measure that to get there to see what the improvement is. Is that right?
Yeah, it's one of those things for me where I think that what Alan did is he said, this is what I want you to do. These are the habits that I think you should adopt. You don't have to if you don't want, but I think this is what you should do. I did them. And then he said, okay, how do we make these a little bit better? How do we make them a little bit better? Okay, how do we do this a little bit better? And then that crossed over into the podcast where after every episode, every single episode, 7 times a week, we say, okay, what's the 1% win? This went really well. What's the 1% improvement? This is what we have to do better. And it has become the culture of our entire business where all of our team tracks their habits. And at the end of their day, they have a 1% win and they have 1% improvement every single day. And then we do the same thing on the team calls. And that has become our culture in a nutshell, so much to the point where we push people to fail. I would rather you try something and fail than not try something and succeed. So it is from the place of passion. Alan was able to connect to me. If you focus on the numbers and how much better you're becoming as a human being, why can't you be the best in the world? The numbers actually say you can, if you do it long enough and consistently enough. And for me, that was like, that's enough proof. I have enough proof here, I think.
Wow. And for those of us who are listening sort of with the lean mindset, what you're saying is exactly what we want to teach people, what we teach people. It is about your daily habits. It's about small steps. And I love what you're saying about how important it is to fail, right? because you don't learn in the place where you haven't had the chance to try something you've never done before. And when you try something you've never done before, it's an experiment, right? You don't know, is it going to work or is it not going to work? Yeah. Kevin, tell me, when you bring people into your organization, how do they react to this?
Oh man, the same way I did, Bella. I'm not doing this. I don't want to do this. This is terrible. Yeah, it's usually, there's definitely some hesitation of, this is going to be unreasonably constricting. It's way too concrete and it's not going to allow me the freedom that I want. And then usually when you get through like the 2 to 3 week mark, people start to say, oh, you know what? Now I wake up and I know exactly what I should be doing, when I should be doing it, why I should be doing it. And I think people start to see, well, I actually have way more freedom because I am dialed in. When you get to the point where you can do 8 hours of habits in a couple hours because you just know exactly how to move about, I think that unlocks so much time for people. So I think one of the other parts of it too is I believe fulfillment comes from growth. So oftentimes we'll have people come into the organization who might feel stuck, or they might feel like they're backed into a corner, and then they start growing at this exponential rate and everything seems to improve. The relationship improves, their fitness improves because they finally feel like they're pouring into themselves. So I think it starts with a lot of questioning and a lot of hesitation and wondering. And I think pretty quickly when you start to see the small shifts and you start to feel the self-worth of not breaking small promises to yourself, that's when it really starts to snowball.
So what you're talking about, I'm listening to what you're saying, is about inviting people into improving themselves. You know, bosses always say, right, your development, you're responsible for your development. And what they often mean by that is go find the course that you want to take, and then I'll tell you it's too expensive, right? Yeah. But you're talking about something different. You're talking about inviting people into a place where they can start making these small improvements, and then that actually helps them think about what are further things that they might want to do. And now they're going to have more time to do them, right? Because they have better control over their day and over their time.
Yeah. It's almost like you come into the organization and we have like 3 key performance indicators, like 3 tasks for you. And the other 8 habits that you employ on a daily basis are for you. They're for health, they're for wealth, and they're for love. I don't want anything to do with them. I want it to be, I have a challenging conversation with my partner. I want it to be, I exercise for 30 minutes a day. I read 30 minutes a day. At the end of the day, the more competent you are as a human, the more you can bring to any organization. And here's the interesting thing, Bella. So to your point, we have done something very unique where we use somebody's natural tendency of being afraid of judgment to help them in a positive way, where if you are on the team, you can see the habits I do every single day. You can see my percentage, you can see my wins, you can see my losses, but I can also see yours. So we almost have a team dashboard where I know exactly how many habits you're actually doing. If you're at 60%, I know. It's helped. Most of our team is emotionally driven, right? So it helps emotionally driven people by bringing accountability from the group and saying, look, we're all in this together. I'm going to lead by example. I will never tell you to do something I'm not doing or I haven't done. And look, I have bad days too. I have days that I miss, so I cannot expect you to be perfect. What I can expect and lead through is when you're not perfect, you try to get a little bit better the next day, and then just rinse and repeat. We're all humans at the end of the day.
Wow. So that's a level of transparency that is really unusual, right? As you know, you said it's unique. And I want to go back to what you said previously. So when you're asking people to adopt certain habits, I mean, so I know organizations that will do something like they'll put in a fitness center, an organization that's big enough, they'll put in a fitness center and they'll say, you can go to the fitness center, but they don't allow people time in their schedule to do that. So that means that then people are doing that after work, or they say, yeah, I'd like to go to the fitness center, but I can't because I got to pick my kids up. But what you're saying is we as an organization, if you decided that you want a habit of exercising 30 minutes a day, that's going to be part of what we are actually going to be helping you with.
Yeah,
right.
100%. Yeah. It's not sustainable otherwise. I think we're in a different time in history now where it's my job as a leader to help you become happier, healthier, wealthier, more fulfilled. If I can help. So if somebody can come to me and say, Kev, I'm really struggling in my relationship. Do you have any advice? If I can give them powerful advice that helps them in the relationship, they're going to be happier and they're going to be more productive. They're going to be more fulfilled. They're just going to be a better version of themselves, not intrinsically, but in terms of capabilities. I mean, when people leave work, it's almost like they go into a different life. It's like, well, I'm at home now. So it's like the home life, where I want you to be able to use everything that we talk about throughout your entire life. And it's at the point, Bella, where it really is that fact of like, tell me what you want to happen in fitness. And somebody will say, I want to lose X amount of pounds. Okay, I can help you with that because I've studied that, right? I want to be more fulfilled in my relationship. I can help you with that. I've studied that. That's our brand. Our brand is holistic self-improvement. So if you're on the team, you get coaching for free. That's part of it, is like behind the scenes, I'm trying to help you. Alan's trying to help you. So it's this very beautiful thing where people come on and they work with us. They don't work for us. They work with us on this mission, and we try to pour into them as much as they're pouring into the mission. And it's this beautiful snowball of successful progress is what I would say.
And the benefit for you as an organization is when you have people who are happy, healthy, and not worried about money, and have strong relationships, then they are going to have more time and energy, and brain power to put into the work that needs
100%.
to be done.
100%.
Yeah. But I think it's so true that when people leave work, they go home and it's a totally different life. And I think some people, kind of treasure that because they're not particularly fond of the people that they work with, or what's going on at work. They're doing work because, let's face it, they need to pay the rent. You don't necessarily want your boss giving you advice on your relationship. You don't want your coworker weighing in on whether you're doing a great job paying down your credit card debt. I mean, that's it. I don't trust these people. So you're going to have to, I think, Kevin, you have to be building up trust within the organization in order for this to happen. And I'm sure the transparency about your own habits is great. What else do you do to build that trust, to make it safe for people?
Yeah. So one of the interesting things that we have that maybe your typical organization wouldn't is we already have a community of people listening to us. So just like you, Bella, you have listeners who know you, they like you, they trust you. If you reached out to them and said, hey, I have a position available, is that something you might be interested in? They would probably jump at that because they know you. better than they know some other company or some other potential employer that they're going to go work for. So for us, what we do is we tend to hire from within the community. That's kind of our answer to everything, because I know the core values are aligned. So that's been one of our habits is we'll find somebody and we'll say, okay, we're looking for blank. Who do we know in the community who might be aligned with that? And then we're willing to train them up to what our standard is, because I think we have a very deep-seated belief that you don't have to have the skills. We can teach you the skills. What you do have to have is humility, heart, and passion. And that's very hard to teach. We've had some very intelligent, capable humans on our team before, and it didn't work out. It didn't work out because most of what we were trying to do is get rid of their ego. What we do now is we bring people in who are just passionate about being part of the project. And we say, okay, this is what we're going to try to teach you. Let us know what lands. Let us know what doesn't land. And then it's just that continuous improvement. Let's just get a little bit better, a little bit better. And then through the leadership, we feel like we can really continue to grow and scale.
So you've got this continuous, in addition to continuous improvement, you have continuous feedback that's pretty much 360. It reminds me very much of Menlo and what Rich Sheridan does at Menlo, and I don't know if you've ever had a chance to visit them. So they're a software company, a small software company, and one of the things that they say is similar to you. They said, they need to hire people who know something about software development, but in fact, and actually due to the nature of the business, the kind of software that they need to know changes all the time anyway. So why hire an expert in a particular type of software? Hire somebody who really is going to contribute to the company in other ways. Someone who is willing to listen, someone who is willing to teach, someone who is comfortable and passionate about making software that makes people's lives easier. That's the person they want to hire, not the world's greatest software engineers. And one of the problems with the world's greatest software engineers is a lot of them like to work by themselves. They don't want to work with other people. So,
Well, it's interesting. I think that you just have to find, to your point, like what are the person's unique strengths? I was reading, I don't know if it was Stretch, a book. Have you read Stretch?
No.
I don't know if it's by, I think it's Scott Sonnenstein. It's all about stretching your dollar and being more resourceful than you are finding resources. And one of the stories in that book is, I believe it was the mechanic that works at 1-800-Flowers. And you might think to yourself, what is the mechanic that works at 1-800-Flowers doing? Like, how is that person going to help the organization? He figured out that if I use this different fuel filter, we'll get 10% more miles per oil change or something. And if you put that over 1,500 vehicles over the course of a year, it's however many dollars. And that person was just very, very, very creative. So I think that's another point is, part of the continuous improvement is I want you to understand how valuable you are to this team, even if you're not doing something that seems super valuable or behind the scenes, because I'm always in front of the scenes. Most of what we do, we couldn't do without you. So I think that's another thing too, that communication feedback loop.
Right. And everything's a system, right? I mean, in order for you to do what Kevin does, there are people behind you who maybe invisible to other people who are doing what they do, and it's helpful for people to understand how it all connects, right? That's that's part of the communication that leaders have to do, is show people, if you do this, this is going to help drive something else. But I love what you said about the mechanics' creativity as well. It's about allowing people's creativity to flourish, and that means that people are allowed to be creative, that they can allowed to ponder something and bring the idea to somebody and have it heard, which I think is a challenge in many organizations. But people are just supposed to stick to their job.
All the positive places I've been always wanted that type of thinking, and the places that didn't work out, and I definitely most likely went out of business, they weren't of that improvement. It was we've always done it this way. Let's keep doing it. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Well, just because it's not broken doesn't mean it couldn't be better, and I think there's a fine line.
Right. I mean, even to the point where, you may actually want to break something so that you can make it better, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. So, Kevin, one of the things that was intriguing when you and I talked before was this idea of taking this home, right? So in the lean community, we have a lot of conversation about this. And I told you one of the things that happens is that, and I've had this happen to me, is that we have our spouses, our partners, our families say, don't do that to me, right? Don't do that stuff to me, right? You do that at work, you don't do it at home. What you're talking about, though, you're talking about really bringing it home, people taking the idea of continuous improvement, daily continuous improvement home. What is the secret of doing that in a way that you don't get that pushback from the rest of the family?
Yeah, that is the $1 trillion question, Bella. For us, it's number one, it's the brand, but my goal is to be the most extraordinary version of myself. So I break that into health, into wealth, into love. So when it comes to love in the relationship, at the end of the day, the belief that I have is that relationships are about growth. And if you're somebody who knows how to grow at an exponential rate, I believe if you can practice your communication, you can bring that home with you and just say, look, I understand I do this at work, but I could actually be more effective doing that at home because number one, there's two of us and it's going to improve our relationship. I mean, don't you want to have an extraordinary relationship? I think that, so this is what I always say. If you were to bring 6 new habits, 2 under health, 2 under wealth, 2 under love, right? So health, weigh yourself and track your calories. Under wealth, eliminate all non-essential expenditures and track your bank balance every single day. And this is the interesting one. When we get to love, people are like, well, what would I do for love? You play the gratitude game with your partner every night before you go to bed and have a weekly check-in where you sit down and say, hey, what did you like about this week? What didn't you like? What do you want more of? What do you want less of? That's how it starts. And it's just that small little shift of, hey, I feel like we haven't been communicating about our feelings lately. This Sunday, are you open to sitting down and just discussing our feelings? That's how it starts. It doesn't have to be from the approach of we have to get 1% better every day or every conversation has to be right. I think it's just that through line of at the end of the day, the success of a relationship depends on the two people in it. And the point of a relationship is growth. How successful can the relationship be if both people are not focused on growth towards a greater good? I don't think it can be truly as magnificent as possible. So I think it comes from vulnerability. I think it comes from the vulnerability of me saying, Bella, you and I are amazing, but I wonder what would happen if we focused a little bit more on giving each other feedback and focusing on our own feelings and talking about what matters to us. And I don't think it has to be taking it home. I think it has to be, or I think it can be, this is who I am as a human. I'm focused on improvement.
I love what you said about the gratitude game, Kevin. I think that it's very easy, whether you're at work or at home, when you're with people that you see every day, to forget to thank people, right? And to say, hey, I noticed you did this thing and it really made a big difference to me and I really appreciate it.
It's a game changer. It's a game changer. And I think that one of the things that people tend to, so many people I've seen, I think a lot of people think relationships will succeed by accident. Relationships are like one of those things that almost everybody gets into at one point in their life, but most people have never really truly studied at the deepest level. And it's like, I don't think there's any coincidence that there's so many divorces or people that aren't in very, very happy relationships, because I don't think that they focus on that as much as they do everything else when it comes to improvement.
Well, yeah, I think it's easy to take it for granted, right? Because you see this person every day, right?
Sure. Yeah, and a lot of familiarity creeps in.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting also to me that you talk about wealth for your employees, because so one of the things that I think that sometimes scares leaders is the idea of their employees. Well, it scares people that their employees might leave, right? So you want them to be compensated so that they will stay because of money. People don't really stay with an organization because of money, as we know. But the idea of your employees really aiming for wealth, I think at every level of the organization, that's very unusual, right? I mean, that's not something that most organizations care about.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But it makes such a difference to people's ability to function, right? If they are struggling with debt, or there's a purchase that they want to move, they need to move into a bigger home and they can't figure out how to do it, things like that. Dealing with elder parents or kids who need daycare, things like that. All of that weighs down on a person so much. And it usually is not something that people take to work, right?
Yeah. Well, I think number one, I won't say most, many humans are certainty driven. And if you're uncertain about how you're going to take care of things going on in your life, it's very hard to operate. It's very hard to compartmentalize life. You can't just go to work and forget about your problems. I know a lot of people want that to happen, but that is such a challenge where I don't even know if that's healthy. So that's a whole nother conversation. But what our belief is that you're not going to want to go anywhere else. I really believe that, because we try to be the best humans we can be, not even leaders, not men, just the best humans we can be, where we have team calls where we cry. We just cry it out like, hey, I feel like I failed you guys. I take full responsibility for that. We have other calls where people cry it out to us. And I just think that we're at this unique point where I don't know that, and I mean this in the most humble, gracious way possible, I don't know that anybody on our team has ever worked anywhere like this or ever will work anywhere like this again. I think that's a belief I have, because Alan and I work so incredibly hard on being the best men we can be. And we try to bring that to the team. We had somebody on the team who we started talking with, and we said, we would like to bring you on full time in the next 12 months. And we were talking about this person with their salary, and they said, I make X amount of dollars, but I'm willing to literally cut my salary in half to come work on this team because of how fulfilled I am. And I just think when you have somebody that is that focused on adding value, everything else is kind of easy. It's kind of easy because those are the people who don't get entitled. They're so humble. Our team is so humble, and they're so thoughtful, and they're so consistent, and they just are grateful to be a part of an awesome place. And we have to make sure we don't ever take that for granted either. But I think that's the part of it is, look, we're all going to struggle together. Alan and I struggle every day. We're going to struggle more than you. That's the focus. That's our job. That's the burden. We started this company. You didn't. So we want to get to the point where everybody is wealthy. Everybody is the most in love they can be. Everybody is the healthiest version of themselves. That's the ultimate goal. And if people want to leave, cool. I'll write you your letter of recommendation and I'll do the call with you, whatever you need. At the end of the day, I want you to be the happiest, most fulfilled version of you. And if that's not with us, I'm doing you a disservice by not helping you find out what that is. That's my belief.
So what you're talking about is extremely countercultural in American business,
yes.
as I think you know. So we've talked about how you came to understand the value of math. How did you come to this? When you're talking about humility, that is not something that is taught in business school. That's not something that people, I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs, when you're podcasting, you talk to a lot of entrepreneurs. Yeah. Humility is not a hallmark of most entrepreneurs. In fact, I think sometimes it goes the other way. So how did you and Alan come to this?
I think I've just been beaten down every day for the last 5 years. Genuinely. I went from a successful foreman in the construction industry making $120 an hour to broke overnight when I left that job. And I didn't make any money for 2 years. I lived off credit cards. I put myself $35,000 into credit card debt. And this entire journey, when I left my job, Bella, I stopped caring about the money of my job and I cared more about the impact. And I think that we're in the business realm, entrepreneurship, but the self-improvement industry is this interesting place where there's a lot of people who have big egos who claim not to. And Alan and I stopped having guests on our show because there were certain times where we're like, I don't want to promote this. I can't promote this. So I believe that for us, we were both raised without dads. We were both raised pretty broke. We both endured a lot of trauma. And when Alan and I partnered up, he called me out on my BS. I called him out on his BS. And the agreement we had with each other, the race that we were having, the competition was who can be the best man. And I told Alan, I said, I will be a better man than you. And he said, no, you will not. And that's been the challenge. So this is what I'll say. Our goal is to bring holistic self-improvement to the masses, to have the most successful self-improvement business ever. And what that will require of us, yes, we have to learn a ton about business. Yes, we have to learn a ton about humans. But the number one thing that we have to do that I think a lot of people don't think about, I have to have a bulletproof character. Because when you make it to the top, that's when things get really, really hard. And if you don't have the character to sustain that, we're focused on sustaining as we are building. And I don't think a lot of people are doing that. I know so many people, Bella, who have gotten unreasonably successful and their character couldn't sustain it. So they went all the way back and they never tried again. So we're trying to build it slow and sustainable. And for the first 3 years, we weren't focused on making money. We were focused on building our characters, and being humble was a very, very important part of that for us. Yeah, that's where it comes from.
And that is one of the biggest challenges that people who are doing continuous improvement inside other organizations run into, because you have to have leadership on board. And in order for leadership to be on board, there has to be at least enough humility for leaders to realize that they need to learn something new.
Yeah.
And many times when somebody gets into that kind of a role, they are not able to admit that anymore. They cannot learn something new. So I give you and Alan a huge amount of credit for discovering that. It sounds like you discovered it the hard way, but it's
of course. I think everything I've discovered,
way, right?
It is. I think everything I've discovered, Bella, has probably been the hard way. But I think, I mean, to your point, at the end of the day, the organization is either handcuffed or elevated by the leaders. If the leaders are not willing to learn, there's not much that's going to happen. So I think that's the part of it for me, is I have so much to learn. I learn every single day. There are things that I know really well that I need to know more about. There are things that I don't know nearly well enough that I need to master. And I think I'll never know enough. In this weird way, intrinsically, I'm a valuable human being and I love myself and I have self-love. Awesome. But I will never know enough. And that's what keeps me humble, is I will never know enough. So I can't get to the point where it's like, well, I don't need to learn anymore. That'll never happen. The second that happens, you can take all of my goals and my dreams and my passions and my purpose off the table. Because if I stop learning, this whole train stops. And I think when we talk continuous, that means forever. And I think a lot of leaders get to a point where they say, this is enough. This is good enough. I've made enough. I'm doing enough. I'm working enough, where I don't ever want to get there. Now, again, I've been doing this for 5 years. 50 years from now, will that change? I don't know. I don't anticipate it, but I'm sure nobody does.
I can guarantee, I'm a bit older than you, Kevin, and I can guarantee you that no matter how old you are, there is always more to learn. And I think that it's one of the things that is important to keep doing, right? Even if it's just for brain health, as you get older, your brain changes, how you retain what you learn changes, but you can always improve your brain health by continuing to learn.
100%.
Yeah. So it's very important stuff. So Kevin, tell us a little bit about your company. You said it's a self-improvement company, continuous improvement company. What is it actually that you do?
So the number one thing we do is podcasting. So we do 7 episodes a week. When we built our business, we didn't think of how do we make the most amount of money. And I know it's cliche, and I think a lot of people say this, but it was, how do we help the most amount of people? I don't do 7 episodes a week because I want to. If there was 8 days in the week, we would do 8 episodes a week. There's 7, so that's where we're at right now. So our business is, number one, the podcast, bringing positive impact to people. But some people say, well, I want more. So we have group coaching, we have one-on-one coaching, we do live events, we have retreats. And then we have another side of our business where we do website development, we do podcast development, we do social media, we have VAs. So this is pretty much, it came about where we said, okay, we're 5 years into our journey. What did we need help with throughout these last 5 years? Then we created those departments and said, cool, now we can help people who are trying to do what we're trying to do in the world. So that is our business in a nutshell. Everything that we struggled with through our 1% improvements and continuous improvement, we figured out how to, I won't say master it because there's always room for improvement, but we figured out how to deliver on that. And that became the biggest parts of our business.
And what it sounds like the reaction has been very positive, that you're building, and I love what you said before about you're building a community. It's not just about.
Yeah. Our community is the biggest part of the business. I mean, we have amazing people that listen to the podcast all over the world. And that's eventually those people could be on the team, or those people, that's the beautiful thing is they're already part of the culture. They're already part of the community. They already know us at a very deep level. If you're listening to 7 episodes a week, my goodness, I appreciate you so very much. That's a lot. So they already know us. They like us. They trust us. They understand us, and they believe what we're doing in the world. So yeah, our community is the most valuable piece that we have of the entire, one listener. I always say this, I don't know the value of one human being listening to our podcast. It's so much. I don't know if I could put a dollar amount on it. It's so incredibly valuable because you never know what's going to happen in the future. My first client I ever had, I started coaching for free. She's now on the team, right? Like, she was a listener. She became a client for free. She started paying. And then 2 or 3 years later, now she's working with us on the team. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful synchronistic thing that we have going. And I'm very, very grateful that we do.
Well, thanks for sharing that with us. How do people find your organization?
So you can just search Next Level University on all the major podcast platforms. That is the main place. Or you can go to nextleveluniverse.com. That is our website. It has all the things that we do in the world there.
Kevin, what's your one piece of advice for a young person starting out? You've got you've had some roads you've gone down. So tell us.
I would say understand what you're really good at and understand what you're really not good at. I think self-awareness, true humility, in my opinion, is having the courage to admit what you're good at, but having the courage to admit what you're not. So if somebody comes to you and says, hey, you're a really good speaker, and you are, I think humility is saying, thank you so much. I've just worked years and years and thousands of hours. And if somebody comes to you and says, hey, I think it's a little bit of a blind spot, the way you lead in this way, I think true humility is saying, wow, I never looked at it that way. Thank you so much for that new perspective. I'm going to do better and try to improve that. And I think that comes with self-awareness. So anybody, young, old, older, younger, I think figuring out what you're wildly good at and admitting it, and figuring out where your weak spots are and highlighting them and asking for help. I would say that self-awareness is the biggest thing that I wish I knew in the beginning.
Wow. Thank you. That is great advice. And that will be helpful.
Well, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for having me. This was wonderful. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity to chat with you.
Thanks. Thanks, Kevin, for traveling with us to the edges of lean.
This is Bella Engelbach, and I'd like to thank Kevin Palmieri for being my guest on the Edges of Lean. Are you using your continuous improvement skills outside your work? And how are you measuring your improvements? We'd love to hear from you. Find Kevin at nextleveluniverse.com or on LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn or at leanforhumans.com, or comment wherever you watch or listen. Subscribe and tell a friend about the Edges of Lean. Please join me in exploring more of the Edges of Lean. There's a lot to learn. And check out my friends in the Lean Communicators community at leancommunicators.com. You'll find more podcasts and videos with lots of great new content every week. The Edges of Lean is written and produced by Bella Engelbach with support from Podcast Inc. This is a Lean for Humans production.